if I told you that trying to look, absolutely flawless on your wedding day could literally leave you walking down the aisle with actively healing facial wounds?
I mean, it sounds intense, but it's true.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are decoding the high-stakes, meticulously timed world of bridal microblading. And whether you are actively planning a wedding right now, or maybe preparing for another major life event, or you're just, genuinely fascinated by the hidden science of our beauty routines, we are doing a deep dive into the biological reality of eyebrow perfection.
Exactly, because it's a lot more complicated than people think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, perfectly shaped eyebrows have become this defining cornerstone of modern beauty, right? But getting them mathematically perfect for one specific date on the calendar, that practically requires a mathematical formula.
It really does.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because getting microblading done before a big event it's not like dropping to a salon for a quick haircut. It's more like a delicate architectural project. It requires a blueprint, a solid foundation, and frankly, strategic curing time.
Right. And I'm glad you brought up the word curing because the source material we're looking at today doesn't just offer standard beauty tips. It reveals this fascinating intersection of dermatology, wound healing, and honestly, high-level project management.
Project management for your face.
Literally. The biology of how your skin accepts, attacks, and eventually retains foreign pigment is incredibly complex. And when you map that biological timeline onto a strict wedding countdown, well, the logistics become pretty unforgiving.
Unforgiving is the right word. So before we can map out a timeline, we first have to understand what a touch-up actually is. Because, the phrase touch-up sounds so casual.
Yeah, it does.
Like, it sounds like pulling a compact out of your purse, just swiping on some lipstick in the bathroom.
Yeah.
But applying that label to microblading feels a bit misleading, doesn't it?
It is highly misleading. In the context of microblading, a touch-up, which by the way usually happens 6 to 8 weeks post-initial treatment, and then you do maintenance every 12 to 18 months, it isn't just a simple redo.
Right.
It's a highly specific refinement session. The artist is evaluating how your specific immune system reacted to the first session. So they're filling faded pigment, they're adjusting the overall density, and they are perfecting the symmetry.
Okay, wait, I'm trying to visualize this. Because if the needle is just lightly scratching the surface of the skin, why is it such a massive event for the immune system?
Well, because your body doesn't know you're getting ready for a wedding, right?
Good point.
Your body only registers that it's being repeatedly sliced open by tiny needles and injected with a foreign substance. To achieve lasting color, the needle has to penetrate just deep enough to reach the upper dermis.
Because if it's just on the surface, it just flakes off, right?
Exactly. The top layer, the epidermis, sheds constantly. So the moment that pigment hits the dermis, your immune system rushes to the site of the trauma. Macrophages, which are these specialized white blood cells, they actually arrive to literally swallow the pigment particles.
Wait, really? Your white blood cells try to eat the ink.
Yes, they try to protect your body from this foreign invader, and that creates an immediate inflammatory response.
Oh, wow. Which totally explains the chaotic, immediate aftermath of the procedure. Because right after treatment, your brows are shockingly dark and, overly defined.
Yeah, they can look pretty scary for a few days.
But here's where I want to push back a little, playing proxy for you listening. If it's just a touch-up, and you want your brows to look their absolute most defined for the event, why can't I just do it the week of the wedding so it's fresh?
See, what's fascinating here is that freshness in microblading actually means vulnerability and inflammation. It does not mean readiness.
Oh, okay.
The biological reality of the healing process, and the source warns heavily about this, involves scabbing, flaking, redness, and wild color fluctuations. The pigment is sitting high up in the skin, mixed with blood and lymphatic fluid. That's why it looks so intense.
So if you do it the week of the wedding, you aren't showcasing perfect brows. You're showcasing an active immune response.
Exactly. You're literally healing.
Okay, well, framing it as walking down the aisle with an active immune response definitely shifts the perspective. Because the healing process is so volatile, working backward from the wedding date is essential. So let's map out this timeline.
Let's do it.
Starting at the 3 to 6 month mark before the event. This is the safest time frame for an initial treatment, right?
Yes. That 3 to 6 month buffer is crucial for a pristine result. First off, it eliminates so much wedding planning stress.
Oh, for sure.
And biologically, it gives your skin ample time to undergo multiple cellular turnover cycles. It lets the pigment settle into its true final color and it leaves maximum flexibility for any adjustments.
Which brings us to the sweet spot. 6 to 8 weeks out from the event. This is the most critical window for that refinement touch-up we talked about.
Right, because at 6 to 8 weeks out, the previous pigment is fully stabilized, the inflammatory phase is completely over, the artist can actually see the true geometry of the brow and perfect it.
But let's talk about the danger zones. Say your schedule slips, things get crazy, and suddenly you are 2 to 4 weeks out. Doing a touch-up in this window is a massive gamble.
A huge gamble.
The source notes it's really only meant for minor color enhancements, and you're actively risking temporary redness and swelling. And then there's the sub-2-week window. Less than 2 weeks out is just a hard no.
Oh, absolutely. A responsible artist won't even touch you that close to the event.
I mean, trying to get a touch-up less than 2 weeks out is like trying to dry clean your wedding dress while you're wearing it down the aisle. It's just a recipe for disaster involving patchy pigment, skin sensitivity, and unexpected scabbing right when you need to be taking close-up portraits.
Right. Imagine trying to apply concealer over unpredictable scabbing while a photographer is taking macro shots of your face. You just can't rush human biology.
But a timeline is only as good as the canvas it's applied to. Let's pivot to the biological wildcards. Because why might your body actually sabotage this schedule?
This is such a critical point because we have this universal calendar, but individual variables can totally derail it. Skin type and age are massive factors.
How so? Like oily versus dry skin?
Exactly. The dermatological facts are pretty clear here. Oily skin retains pigment very differently than dry or normal skin. The oil, or sebum, is constantly pushing up through the dermis.
Then that messes with the ink.
Yeah, it acts almost like a biological solvent. It can push the pigment out or cause those crisp, hair-like strokes to blur. So oily skin might demand more maintenance.
And what about age?
Younger skin has a rapid cellular turnover rate, so it heals faster. Mature skin, on the other hand, needs extra time for the tissue to rebuild and for the pigment to stabilize.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because it's not just genetics. Lifestyle factors play a huge role. Being a fitness enthusiast could literally ruin your brows.
Oh, it actively sabotages pigment retention.
So if you're sweating a lot, working out to burn off wedding stress, how does that undo a dermal procedure?
Well, sweat is primarily water and salt. When you sweat heavily, you're pumping a warm saline solution directly into open micro wounds. And salt is incredibly effective at drawing out moisture and pigment through osmosis.
Wait, like it literally pulls the ink out of your face.
Yes. Add in frequent sun exposure from running outdoors or swimming in chlorine, and you are dismantling the artist's work on a cellular level.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this shows exactly why standard beauty advice always has to be customized to an individual's biology and lifestyle. You can't just grab a generic timeline and assume it works for everyone.
Precisely. The timeline has to be adapted to your physiological reality.
Which leads us into the aftercare gauntlet. Because individual biology is so unpredictable, these strict aftercare rules are the only way to regain control over the final result.
And they are intense.
Very. We're talking about keeping brows completely dry for days, dodging UV rays like a vampire, and the absolute ironclad rule no picking scab.
Please do not pick the scabs.
Because that physically rips the pigment right outright.
Yes, it pulls the ink out with the stab, leaving permanent patchy bald spots. It's a huge test of willpower.
But there's also a major skincare conflict here. You must avoid harsh skincare products near the brows during healing.
Right. Retinoids, exfoliants, strong acids, they're designed to force rapid cellular turnover. But microblading relies on the skin healing slowly and encapsulating the pigment.
Wait, so if a bride is doing a heavy exfoliation routine to get glowing skin for the wedding, they have to navigate around their healing brows like a minefield. That requires some serious logistical planning.
It really does. One accidental swipe of a glycolic acid pad, and you ruin the whole procedure. You strip the color out before it even sets.
Which is terrifying. So to manage this complex web of timelines, biology, and clashing skincare routines, a holistic planning strategy is totally required. Which brings us to the payoff. Why do we put ourselves through this?
Because the aesthetic payoff is undeniable.
Right. Fuller brows, defined features, significantly less time in the makeup chair on the big day. Plus, you get flawless photographs whether you want a natural or glamorous look, and you never have to worry about your brows melting off halfway through the reception.
The sheer convenience is the driver. But getting to that effortless morning requires climbing a mountain of logistics, and that's how the source recommends handling this, using wedding planning platforms like Weddizer.
Weddizer. Right, because tracking cellular turnover cycles alongside catering deadlines is just too much.
Way too much for a normal calendar.
Let's synthesize the ideal master calendar for you listening, kind of a Weddizer style approach.
Mhm.
At 6 months out, you do your consultation. 4 to 5 months out, you have that first session.
And then at 6 to 8 weeks out, you do the perfecting touch-up.
Exactly. And then at the 1 month mark, you schedule your makeup trial because the touch-up is healed, the true color has bloomed, and the makeup artist is working with your final facial geometry.
Right. And then 1 to 2 weeks out, you can finally do your final skincare prep safely.
Because the quarantine zone around your brows is lifted. But managing this, it's a lot.
This raises an important question, though. How could modern couples possibly manage dozens of moving parts without centralized resources? You need a platform that tracks vendor bookings and beauty prep all in one place, so you don't accidentally schedule a harsh chemical peel 3 days after a brow touch-up.
You literally outsource the mental load to the platform.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? It means perfect bridal brows are less about the day of makeup and entirely about months of strategic timing, understanding your unique skin type, and surviving a rigorous aftercare gauntlet.
It's all in the preparation.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. It's deeply ironic that the entire goal of microblading is to achieve this low-maintenance, effortless look. Yet doing so requires one of the most high-maintenance, heavily scheduled, and biologically delicate processes imaginable. It really invites you to question how much hidden labor actually goes into the things society casually perceives as effortless beauty.
Wow, that is such a great point to end on. Until next time.